As inflation rises, so do the costs of fruits and vegetables. And that makes it so for that many families, it is really hard to put that type of food on the table. But what if we told them there was a solution? And surprisingly, there is. It's called small-scale farming. Now, small-scale farming's a very broad concept, so it brings out lots of different images for different people. Some might think of small-scale farms in sub-Saharan African countries, like Zambia, where small-scale farmers contribute up to 70% of the food supply, even though they have almost zero resources. Others might think of a small farm on the range, or rooftop gardens in mega cities like New York, where there are hundreds of rooftop gardens, or the loofah farms in Montreal, which at 3 football fields is the biggest rooftop garden on the planet. Now in this talk, we'll be talking about probably the most common type of small-scale farming. Backyard gardens, like the ones in millions of yards across America. Backyard gardens have lots of benefits for you. Some of them are, unlike lots of the food you buy at Costco or Walmart that's been transported to these stores inside big, massive trucks, hundreds of hours to get to that store, inside those trucks, the food actually loses vitamins because it hasn't been exposed to the sun. But in contrast, backyard gardening, the food you get from that, it has lots of vitamins because it was just exposed to the sun when you picked it from your backyard. You're also eating food that didn't have to ruin an ecosystem to get there. On these big farms, they spray pesticides all over their crops, killing everything they don't need. So over time, that's going to ruin the ecosystem because slowly, lots and lots of the plants will die off. So then the herbivores will start shrinking in population, and then the carnivores will start shrinking in population because they have less to eat because the herbivores are dying off. You're also eating food that didn't have to destroy forests to get there. On these big, large-scale farms, they have to cut down hundreds, thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of trees to make space for it. But in contrast, backyard farming does not take up that much space. The average garden bed is 3.5 feet wide to 7.5 feet long, which is 25 square feet. Not a lot of space for what it's worth. You're also eating food that doesn't waste lots of water. If you were to drive along the irrigation canals in many of these large-scale farming regions, such as Central California, you would just see water evaporating, meaning we're just losing water for no reason. It's also not food that's being wasted. In a survey I conducted with students at my school, I figured out that 50% of people with a garden use it 2 or more times every week. And out of that 50% of them use it 4 more times every week. You're also getting to have outside time with nature. You get to sit down, you get to plant plants, you get to hear the birds sing, and you get to just think and be calm and quiet and happy. You're also eating food that's in season. The problem with eating food that was not made inside of that season is that probably the entire time up to the point when you eat it, it's been refrigerated, so that's using up lots of energy. I want to close with a story about victory gardens. During World War II, there was lots of need for food for the soldiers. So the government offered to distribute seeds to its citizens who are willing to make a garden inside of their backyard so some of the food could be distributed to the soldiers in Europe without hurting all the citizens' food. And it worked. Because when asked to do this, 20 million Americans responded and made gardens inside their backyard. They were called victory gardens because they helped ensure victory in the war in Europe. Our world is now in a similar situation. In America and other rich Western countries, growing food is easier, so we have lots of it. But in many other places around the globe, people can barely put food on the table because it's too expensive. They can't find any. There's hundreds of other reasons why, I'm sure. I think we could do something like the Victory Gardens, where we make a garden in any space you can. It can be your backyard. It can be your rooftop. It can be a traffic circle. It can be a community garden. It can be a splotch of land in the middle, like off the highway. Who cares? Just as long as you can use that sometimes. So maybe some of the food the government is producing can be sent to foundations that will take it where it is needed. I believe small-scale farming has a place in our planet's future. We have seen it does not take up that much space. It's healthy for the environment. It's healthy for you. And can help solve world hunger. And we can all do our own bit inside our garden, our rooftop, our community circle, our community garden, traffic circle. There's an Irish saying, you'll never plow a field by turning it over in your mind. So why don't you become a small-scale farmer? Thank you for your time.